desire for power gnaws at the gut, does it not? I can see it does. Excuse my informality, but I feel like I know you. I recognize your craving as if you were my own. You want to control, and the thought makes you slaver like a starving wolf. I can fill your belly, but first I need to know, will you kill in order to fill this void? In Elder Scrolls lore, there seems to be a deity, whether Daedra or Aedra, for every aspect of the world. From time, to love, to nature, to death, to trickery, to madness, to magic. But there's one particular Daedra that is the Daedra of the true workers of the underbelly of Tamriel. And that is Namira. Namira is the Daedra of hunger, decay. She is the spirit Daedra and the goddess of the dark. She is the ruler of the dark and shadowy spirits. She is associated with slugs, spiders, and other things that inspire mortals with instinctive revulsion. The Khajiit believes that Namira represents anything that feeds on rotten flesh, and any sort of decomposer is a spy for Namira. I find Namira a really interesting Daedra Prince to study and look at, because the multiple different cultures of Tamriel see her in a different light, or in no light at all, as in they don't even know about her or recognize her. So I thought we would go on a deep dive into who is Namira, her history, what she's all about, what aspects of the world she really does influence, how different cultures interpret Namira. And I have to say, just looking at her images from Daggerfall, she definitely seems like the goth chick who's really into death metal, and not just into death metal or other types of metal music just because she thinks it's edgy and cool, but because she is actually genuinely into it. Compared to my last video, I think that Namira is on the other side of the line between vampire chicks and zombie goth chicks, I think. I think that's really is the line for goth chicks. If a goth chick is into vampires, she's probably just doing it because she's got some edginess to her and she just wants to pretend like she's edgy and, you know, wants you to think she's tough. Very Serena-esque. Whereas I feel like Namira is, oh no, she will actually kill and eat you. Like you kind of just get that vibe that she don't fuck around. She actually is as bad as she is portraying herself to be. I mean, look at her little, like, guy next to her. It's like her little boyfriend or I don't know, torture person, I don't know. It's very odd. And so I thought we would go on a lore deep dive into definitely one of the seedier underbellies of the Elder Scrolls lore and the histories of Tamriel and the different cultures of Tamriel and how each culture deals with Namira differently. But before going on this lore deep dive, it would mean a lot if you would like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps a lot making more of this content. Thank you. One of the earliest accounts of Namira is from the First Era, and from the account is in the book The Beggar Prince that you can find in Oblivion. And it gives you a good, interesting sort of lay of at least how Imperials and generally how Namira is interpreted in society. We look down upon the beggars of the Empire. Those lost souls are the poor and wretched of the land. Every city has its beggars. Most are so poor they have only the clothes on their backs. They eat scraps the rest of us throw out. We toss them a coin so that we don't have to think too long about their plight. Imagine my surprise when I heard the tale of the Beggar Prince. I could not imagine what a prince of beggars would be. Here is the tale I heard. It takes place in the First Age, when gods walked like men and Daedra stalked the wilderness with impunity. It is a time before they were all confined to oblivion. There once was a man named Weedle, or maybe it was a woman. The story goes to great lengths to avoid declaring Weedle's gender. Weedle was the 13th child of a king in Valenwood. As such, Weedle was in no position to take the throne or even inherit much property or wealth. Weedle had left the palace to find independent fortune and glory. After many days of endless forest roads and tiny villages, Weedle came upon 3 men surrounding a beggar. The beggar was swaddled in rags from head to toe. No portion of the vagabond's body was visible. The men were intent on slaying the beggar. With a cry of rage and indignation, Weedle charged the men with sword drawn. Being simple townsfolk, armed only with pitchforks and scythes, they immediately fled from the armored figure with the shining sword. "Many thanks for saving me," wheezed the beggar from beneath the heap of foul rags. Weedle could barely stand the stench. "What is your name, wretch?" Weedle asked. "I am Namira." Unlike the townsfolk, Weedle was well learned. That name meant nothing to them, but to Weedle it was an opportunity. "You are a Daedric lord," Weedle exclaimed. "Why did you allow those men to harass you? You could have slain them all with a whisper." "I am pleased you recognized me," Namira rasped. "I am frequently reviled by townsfolk. It pleases me to be recognized for my attribute, if not for my name." Weedle knew that Namira was the Daedric lord of all things gross and repulsive. Diseases such as leprosy and gangrene were her domain. Where others might have seen danger, Weedle saw opportunity. "Oh great Namira, let me apprentice myself to you. I ask only that you grant me powers to make my fortune and forge a name for myself that I will live through the ages. Nay, I make my way alone in the world. I have no need for an apprentice." Namira shambled off down the road. Weedle would not be put off. With a bound, Weedle was at Namira's heel, pressing the case for an apprenticeship. For 33 days and nights, Weedle kept up the debate. Namira said nothing, but Weedle's voice was ceaseless. Finally, on the 33rd day, Weedle was too hoarse to talk. Namira looked back on the suddenly silent figure. Weedle knelt in the mud at her feet, open hands raised in supplication. "It would seem you have completed your apprenticeship to me after all," Namira declared. "I shall grant your request." Weedle was overjoyed. "I grant you the power of disease. You may choose to be afflicted with any disease you choose, changing them at will, so long as it has visible symptoms. However, you must always bear at least one. I grant you the power of pity. You may evoke pity in anyone that sees you. Finally, I grant you the power of disregard. You may cause others to disregard your presence." Weedle was aghast. These were not boons from which a fortune could be made. They were curses, each awful in its own right, but together they were unthinkable. "How am I to make my fortune and forge a name for myself with these terrible gifts? As you begged at my feet for 33 days and 33 nights, so shall you now beg for your fortune in the cities of men. Your name will become legendary among the beggars of Tamriel. The story of Weedle, the Prince of Beggars, shall be handed down throughout the generations." It was as Namira predicted. Weedle was an irresistible beggar. None could see the wretch without desperately wanting to toss a coin at the huddled form. However, Weedle also discovered that the power of disregard gave great access to the secrets of the realms. People unknowingly said important things where Weedle could hear them. Weedle grew to know the comings and goings of every citizen in the city. To this day, it is said that if you really want to know something, go ask the beggars. They have eyes and ears throughout the cities. They know all the little secrets of the daily lives of its citizens. So this gives us an interesting little rundown on Namira. She's sort of intentionally the downtrodden, the wretched, the diseased, and she has power over those things. And of course, this is a classic monkey's paw curling story where Weedle gets his unfortunate comeuppance, where he thought he was going to have the glitzy fame and glory that he was looking for on his adventure, but it turned out he gets covered in disease and can be disregarded, and people can pity him at will, basically. I mean, he does at least use it to good ends for himself. He does become famous. And the other interesting thing is that this story does it's sort of a secret tutorial for Oblivion, in the sense that it's telling you that you should go talk to the beggars and be nice to them. Very similar to how the gray fox treats the beggars, and the fact that they are sort of an important piece in society, which I think that's kind of what Namira in a lot of ways represents, is that it's the decomposers of the ecosystem. So that is just a little quick imperial rundown on Namira. But also in the First Era, we have a rundown of what Namira did in the First Era in Morrowind. And this involves two Chimer mages. This is back before the Dark Elves became the Dark Elves, before they got tainted in their battle at the Red Mountain with the Dwemer. So that before that, they were the Chimer. And they were obviously still in conflict with the Dwemer, and apparently two of the Chimer mages worshipped Namira, and Namira created the spell plague for them. Once again, disease, a common theme with Namira, which was then used against the Dwemer to sap in their life force from them, basically. And in ESO, the Vestige helps get rid of this spell plague. The Vestige talks to the spirit of these two Chimer, and he even asks one of them, Keeper Vildras, of the story of the spell plague. Can you tell me the tale of the curse? Indeed, long ago, when our people were still Chimer, this land was known as Veloth. The Chimer revered the Daedra, but they despised the agnostic clans of elves called Dwemer. The Chimer and the Dwemer clashed again and again. Go on. Terrible weapons were made and used. The spell plague was one such weapon. It was created by two medicine mages who worshipped the Beggar Prince Namira. This curse was terrible and worse, uncontrollable. The Chimer lords bound the curse in a hidden vault, then slew Rendrasa Malin and Adras Vela, and imprisoned them with their wicked creation. And so the Vestige ends the spell plague and fortunately gets everything in a better situation. And this is an interesting thing, though, because ironically, though, even though there seems to be some notice of Namira in Chimer and Dark Elf Dunmer culture, she doesn't show up again in Morrowind. Only the 3 good Daedra and the 4 extra bad Daedra are in the original Morrowind game. So it's a little interesting that she kind of got forgotten in the Morrowind game, but is in the ESO game. Namira and the Vestige seem to have a much bigger relationship than any of the other main characters in the Elder Scrolls games. The Vestige runs into Namira again in Black Marsh, in the town of Zal Ixith. Apparently, Namira's followers placed a sort of a relic of Namira, the Hand of Namira, at a hiss tree in an attempt to corrupt the village and the Argonians there, because I guess Namira was jealous of the Argonians who lived there. You end up talking to an aspect of Namira about it. Mortal worm, get away from there. You're the mortal who's interfered with my creatures in the bog, aren't you? Don't bother to tell me your name. You won't need it if you continue to trouble me. Who are you? Who am I? You could not hope to comprehend my true nature, filth. Think of me as an aspect of the Lady of Decay and rightful ruler of all spirits. I claim this land and all within it. None may defy me. What about the Argonians who live here? Those cold-blooded primitives fell once. They can fall again. I will show them that their spirits of the Hist are pale shadows compared to me. Now leave my hand where it lies. Abandon your foolish quest. The people of Zal Ix asked for my help. What help can you give them, mortal? I cannot strike you down, but my minions are more than enough for the likes of you. Even those foolish Hist worshippers recognize that. They won't even approach this part of Zal Ixith. One of those foolish Hist worshippers said this relic will affect your minions. What? How did he know? Mortal, if you attempt this, my creatures will overwhelm you. Nothing will stop me from taking Zal Ixith. And so basically you, as the Vestige, defeat Namira's minions and restore Zal Ixith to what it was before, and bringing harmony back to the Hist and the Argonians. Once again, not super a lot of deep knowledge or relationship between the Argonians and Namira, and I think that's kind of probably what pisses her off, it seems like. It seems like she wants to be more revered in their culture, and so that's why she's doing what she is. So it's interesting how some cultures see her very highly, other cultures do not see her very highly. And now, still in the Second Era, the Vestige, again, runs into Namira, and elsewhere in the Khajiit's culture hold Namira in a much higher light than in the previous cultures. They see her as sort of the big bad in their sort of creation story of Mundus, and it is involved with Lorkhan, which we can see in the words of clan mother Anissi. Anissi tells you are no longer a mewing kitten, and you have learned to keep secrets from Anissi, and so Anissi tells you. In the beginning, there were 2 littermates, Anur and Fadomai. After many phases, Fadomai said to Anur, "Let us wed and make children to share our happiness." And they gave birth to Alkosh, the first cat, and Anur said, "Alkosh, we give you time for what is as fast or as slow as a cat. And they gave birth to Canarthi, the winds. Canarthi, to you we give the sky, for what can fly higher than the wind. And they gave birth to Magrus, the cat's eye. Magrus, to you we give the sun, for what is brighter than the eye of a cat. And they gave birth to Mara, the mother cat. Mara, you are love, for what is more loving than a mother. And they gave birth to Srendar, the runt. Srendar, we give you mercy, for how does a runt survive except by mercy? And many phases passed, and Anur and Fatimai were happy. And Anur said, we should have more children to share our happiness. And Fatimai agreed, and she gave birth to Hermora, and she gave birth to Hircine, and she gave birth to Meruns, and Mafala, and Sangin, and Shergorath, and many others. And Fatimai said, Hermora, you are the tides, for who can say whether the moons predict the tides or the tides predict the moon? Hircine, you are the hungry cat, for what hunts better than a cat with an empty belly? Meruns, you are the Khajiit, for what is more destructive than a kitten? Mafala, you are a clan mother, for what is more secretive than the ways of the clan mothers? Sangin, you are the blood cat, for who can control the urges of blood? Shegorath, you are a skooma cat, for what is crazier than a cat on skooma? Anur said, 2 litters is enough, for too many children will steal our happiness. But Canarthi went to Fatimai and said, Fatimai mother, Canarthi grows lonely so high above the world, where not even my brother Alkosh can fly. Fatimai took pity on her and tricked Anur to make her pregnant again. And Fatimai gave birth to the moons in their motions, and she gave birth to Nirin, the majestic sands and lush forests. And she gave birth to Azura, the dusk and dawn. And from the beginning, Nahiri and Azura fought for their mother's favor. Anur caught Fatimai while she was still birthing, and he was angry. Anur struck Fatimai, and she fled to birth the last of her litter, far away in the great darkness. Fatimai's children heard what had happened, and they all came to be with her and protect her from Anur's anger. And Fatimai gave birth to Lorhaj, the last of her litter, in the great darkness. And the heart of Lorhaj was filled with the great darkness. And when he was born, the great darkness knew its name, and it was Namira. And Fatimai knew her time was near. Fatimai said, Kajai, to you, Fatimai, give the lattice, and for what is steadier than the phases of the moons. Your internal motions will protect us from Anur's anger. And the moons left to take their place in the heavens. And Anur growled and took the great darkness, but he could not cross the lattice. And Fatimai said, Nirini, to you Fatimai leaves her greatest gift. You will give birth to many people as Fatimai gave birth today. When Niri saw that Azura had nothing, Niri's left smiling. And all Fatimai's children left except Azura. And Fatimai said, to you, my favored daughter, Fatimai leaves her greatest gift. To you, Fatimai leaves her secrets. And Fatimai told her favorite daughter 3 things. And Fatimai said, when Niri is filled with her children, take one of them and change them. Make the fastest, cleverest, most beautiful people, and call them Khajiit. And Fatimai said, the Khajiit must be the best climbers, for if Master and Secunda fail, they must climb Canarthi's breath to set the moons back in their courses. And Fatimai said, the Khajiit must be the best deceivers, for they must always hide their nature from the children of Anur. And Fatimai said, the Khajiit must be the best survivors, for Nahiri will be jealous, and she will make the sands harsh and the forests unforgiving. And the Khajiit will always be hungry and at war with Niri. And with these words, Fatimai died. After many phases, Niri came to Lorkhaj and said, Lorkhaj, Fatimai told me to give birth to many children, but there is no place for them. And Lorkhaj said, Lorkhaj makes a place for children, and Lorkhaj puts you there so you can give birth. But the heart of Lorkhaj was filled with the great darkness, and Lorkhaj tricked his siblings so that they were forced into this new place with Niri. And many of Fatimai's children escaped and became the stars. And many of Fatimai's children died to make Niri's path stable. And the survivors stayed and punished Lorkhaj. The children of Fatimai tore out the heart of Lorkhaj and hid it deep within Nirni. And they said, we curse you, noisy Lorkhaj, to walk Nirni for many phases. But Nirni soon forgave Lorkhaj, and Niri could make children. And she filled herself with children, but cried because her favorite children, the forest people, did not know their shape. And Azura had came to her, said, poor Niri, stop your tears. Azura makes for you a gift of new people. Neri stopped weeping, and Azura spoke the first secrets of the moons, and they parted and let Azura pass. And Azura took some forest people who were torn between man and beast, and she placed them in the best deserts and forests of Nirni. And Azura in her wisdom made them of many shapes, one for every purpose. And Azura named them Khajiit, and told them her second secret, and taught them the value of secrets. And Azura bound the new Khajiit to the lunar lattice, as it's proper for Niri's secret defenders. Then Azura spoke the third secret, and the moons shone down on the marshes and let light become sugar. But Yefer heard the first secret and snuck behind Azura, and Yefer could not appreciate secrets and told Neri of Azura's trick. So Neri made the deserts hot and the sands biting, and Neri made the forests wet and filled with poisons. And Neri thanked Yefer, let him change the forest people also. And Yefer did not have Azura's subtle wisdom, so Yefer made the forest people elves always and never beasts. And Yefer named them Bosmer, and from that moment they were no longer in the same litter as the Khajiit. And because Yefer had no appreciation for secrets, he shouted the first secret all across the heavens with his last breath, so that all of Fatimai's children could cross the lattice. But Azura in her wisdom closed the ears of angry Anur and noisy Lorhaj, so they alone did not hear the word. So this is an interesting sort of retelling of what we sort of know as the traditional creation myth of Nirn, basically. Lorhaj being Lorkhan, Azura being Azura, whatever. The names are very, very similar, which is good, but I also do love that Sheogorath is the skooma cat. That's a great little tidbit there. And it seems that Namira is the dark heart of Lorkhan, which is very interesting because we know that the heart of Lorkhan gets sent to where the Red Mountain is. So this is sort of a deviation from other creation myths, or at least the fact that the heart is obviously important to Lorkhan, but this is manifesting in a different way with a different deity being created rather than an artifact being created. And in the spirits of Amdro, the dark spirits, we can learn more about Lorhaj and Namira. Lorhaj, the moon beast, born of the dark heart of Lorhaj, which overcame him after he suffered a great betrayal. In his wisdom, Lorhaj sought his sister Azura, who tore the darkness from him before it consumed him and cast it into the void. We know this shade of Lorhaj as the first of the Dro-m'Athra, who served the Namira, our enemy. The moon beast prowls the edges of lattice and pounces on Khajiit who strayed too far off the path. Know that on nights of the ghost moon, Azura has opened the void gate, and the moon beast will challenge mortals until banished. We accept this burden as part of the path, and for the sake of our lost kin. Namira, the eldest spirit, the greatest darkness, the void. All creatures who feed on rotten flesh are her spies and the prey of cats. The lunar lattice protects us from her hunger, but not our own. Know that to name her aloud is to invite the darkness, so you must never do so, as Namira is the sound of her true name. She is a spirit of infinite realms, of which only Azura knows all. Mortals who become ensnared by this spirit are tortured until they forget who they were and only know Namira. This eternal suffering for all souls but the Khajiit, whom Azura will not abandon to the dark. Noctra, the shadow thief, daughter of Twilight, born from the black blood of Lorhaj, at the steps of the Void Gate. In the songs, Boratha battled this spirit until it knew it was not Namira. When this was done, Noctra was brought before Azura to be judged. Azura showed mercy and allowed Noctra to live, so long as she served Azura and the Khajiit. But Noctura is rebellious by nature, so she stole one of Azura's keys and fled back into the void. It is written that Azura sent the true spirit of Lorhaj to find her, and ever since Noctra has aided the Khajiit when called. Tribes may whisper to Noctra for silence, shade, and luck. Do not summon her to perform vile deeds, for this will bring the dark with her. Varmira, queen of nightmares, the lost daughter. This spirit was not of any litter, but was born from Fatimai's fear of losing her children. Azura killed this dark spirit in the underworld, and now Varmira only haunts Khajiit when they dream. Know she will test you and make you turn from the path in fear, but she cannot truly harm the Khajiit in dreams. A spirit of vengeance has no will of its own, as it was born from Azura's grief after the death of Fatimai and Lorhaj. None can summon this spirit save Azura, Boratha, and Mafala, for only they know its true name. It sometimes appears in the song as Black Panther, a warrior in ebony armor, or as a hidden sword. So, you learn that in Khajiit culture, Namira is sort of the most evil, the spirit. She's sort of the jailer of the damned, I guess you could say. And this sort of leads to Namira's realm, which seems to be from the dark heart of Lorhaj, the Void, and is known as the Scuttling Void, or as the Khajiit call it, Dark Behind the World. And from there, she sort of takes the lost spirits of Khajiit and turns them into the Dro-m'Athra. We get a nice little quote from Rid Data about the Dro-m'Athra. Namira's darkness swirls amid our dreams and doubts. All the evils of Oblivion rake their claws and gnash their fangs against the lattice, seeking to take our old souls as a prize. Be cautious, move swiftly, hide your hearts away in the thick jungles of the self, and think often of their great worth. For if you fail to hear the beating of your own heart, the beat of Lorhaj, it will take its place forevermore. And in the Into the Maw quest, we run into a Khajiit named Adara Hai, who sort of tells us about the Dro-m'Athra. You can ask her, what's going on here? There is a sickness here. Namira's dark litter, the Dro-m'Athra, have taken the temple. These are the only survivors. Most are half mad. It's the Zaratha Lorhaj, the bent dance. The rhythm beats the mind like a kettle drum. Difficult to watch, yes. And so there is, in this Temple of the Seven Riddles and elsewhere, the Dro-m'Athra have taken over, and as the vestige has to sort of help get rid of them all and eventually cleanse the place and seal it up again so that Namira and the Dro-m'Athra cannot enter into elsewhere. There's sort of an interesting little story about how the Dro-m'Athra get into the Temple of the Seven Riddles. It is in Vazshara's journal. Vazshara has only been a doubting monk for a week, and already she is regretting her decision. No one talks about what happened here before the two kingdoms set their roots, but is on everyone's mind all the time. It's like there is a great big Senich tiger eating our dinner, but we're forbidden to slap its nose. We all know that some moon bishop stirred up the darks here and let the Dro-m'Athra into Neri. But why? How? No one will say. Vashara has heard all the rumors, of course. The patty tales of Khajiit laugh over when they think no one is listening. Most Khajiit laugh along, but this one knows that silly stories often hide darker truths. This one has to find out what really happened here. Vazshara's claws are cramped from writing. This one has spoken to many, many monks and committed their stories to paper. Vazshara has to admit, these tales are much darker than the ones she learned as a Khajiit. The players are always the same, crazy monks and a moon bishop called the Stone Tapper. Apparently this bishop carried a magic stick that spoke secrets when he tapped it on the floor. No one knows where this magic stick came from, or where it went after the moon bishop died, so it might be Sench dung, but one mystery at a time, yes? Day and night this moon bishop tapped the floor, learning all of Neri's secrets, but eventually the magic stick ran out of Neri's secrets, so it started telling darker secrets, Namira's secrets. The tapper listened and listened. Growing old and crazy, the monks of the temple went crazy too. Because the tapping never stopped, it was a loud, steady sound. Tap, 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 tap. Like a heartbeat, yes? Eventually, the monks hatched a plot to kill the Stone Tapper. They lured him into the high lunarium and stabbed him with their curved knives until he died. All the blood and secrets drained out of the tapper's body and broke open the temple, revealing the Maw of Lorhaj and the darks beyond. This is where the tale starts to fray. In some versions of the story, the tapper wakes up after his blood is drained and kills all the monks with lightning. In others, a great winged beast bursts out of Lorhaj's throat and rips the monks apart with claws and fangs. But this makes no sense. The seals scattered throughout the temple clearly show the moon bishop flanked by monks and summoning bent spirits. And this one has seen what looks like a door in the high lunarium. So he must have survived, and he must have been pushed at least some of the monks into the bent dance. Right? Bah. This one thinks it might be a guilty conscience. The doubting monks have a sour reputation. Many Khajiit think the order played a role in freeing the Dro-m'Athra. This one is starting to think that they may be right. Vashara should have listened to her pop-up and become a fisherman. Vis on this place. Abbot Kulandro summoned Vashara to the high lunarium today and gave her the worst tongue-lashing of her life. No more loose talk. No more questions. Bah, as if anything in this place was loose. This temple is a tomb. No one laughs or sings or dances. It's nothing but chanting and whispers and tail-tucked prayer. This one would be enough to make Vashara run away, but there is more. There was something in the abbot's eyes. It wasn't rage. No, it wasn't that. It was like nothing, like a dull black nothing, like a dead cat's eyes. It made this one's tail knot up. Vashara's had enough. This one makes for the sea at first light. Moons curse this place and its abbot. And so, of course, the vestige eventually gets through, and the vestige closes the portal to the scuttling void, stopping the Dro-m'Athra from entering. And a similar thing happens with the vestige, stopping Namira from corrupting the Khajiit wall of life. And so you get this sort of idea that Namira, specifically in the Khajiit culture, is like the boogeyman, basically, like the worst of the worst, corrupts these poor Khajiit spirits and then uses them for her own will, basically. And we do learn that there's at least help for the Dro-m'Athra, and that the Khajiit culture obviously do not want their spirits to get controlled by Namira, such as something we can read in the Stone of Atonement. What deeper grief can a Khajiit suffer than witnessing a true cat's fall to Namira, watching the shining faces of brothers and sisters suddenly struck black as midnight, creased with snarls of rage and sorrow? Our people curse the Dro-m'Athra, but let us never forget that every dancing thrall of Namira was once a pure child of Azura, and an inheritor of the Ja-Khajiit. No Khajiit is beyond redemption. By pressing the Dro-m'Athra's souls into the bones of our fallen kin, we give them an opportunity for atonement, for the peace found only in twilight. So, pay no heed to those who shrink from our calls to the dark. No price is too great for a soul made clean. And this is continued in the Stone of Banishment. The path to atonement often gives way to encroaching shadows of rage and self-pity. It loops back upon itself relentlessly, driving the penitent to face the enormity of their sins again and again. In time, the tortured Dro-m'Athra may accept the truth and seek redemption through service to our order. But many resist. For these pitiable creatures, banishment is our only recourse. Through prayer, song, and slashing blades, we keep safe the roads between worlds. We find great honor in this work, but great danger also. Never forget that Namira craves the hunter's heart above all else. An adept must find the seed of peace that hides within the bitter fruit of war. So, I think we're sort of starting to see this antagonism between Namira and Khajiit. Khajiit are these predator-like creatures. Namira, it definitely does not represent a predator. She represents sort of the bugs, the decayed, the downtrodden, whereas Khajiit see themselves as these sort of higher beings, these predators. And so you see where there's a lot of cultural clash between these two concepts. And I would say the Khajiit's culture and their views of Namira seem to be the most robust out of any other culture. We can finally leave the second era and ESO world, and now we can finally go to the third era, and we can go to the very first introduction of Namira in any of the games ever, and that's in Daggerfall, where you can summon Namira and go on a quest for her. And just like most quests in Daggerfall, it's a very simple quest. Namira asks the agent to kill a vampire ancient. In return, Namira then gives the agent Namira's ring, which allows, if used, for the opponent to take damage depending on how much damage they are inflicting. So basically like a damage reflect spell. But we do get some cool dialogue from Namira. A voice from the darkness. The desire for power gnaws at the gut, does it not? I can see it does. Excuse my informality, but I feel like I know you. I recognize your craving as if you were my own. You want to control, and the thought makes you slaver like a starving wolf. I can fill your belly, but first I need to know, will you kill in order to fill this void? Wonderful, you should see the look in your eyes. You will be mighty, I can see it in them. Now your stepping stone to powers of vampiric ancient who has displeased me. Know that he is a mighty adversary, and the asylum is well protected, but you can kill them, and once you have, go, my darling friend, into the town. There's a busy person, so don't keep them waiting. They will have a present for you that I will make you very happy. Farewell, we will meet again, I know. And so this is sort of this is the very first introduction to Namira, and you can kind of see it's about hunger, it's about eating stuff, and you are killing something that is technically undead, so it is sort of like a decomposing type of a thing going on here. And I have to say, this is probably the hottest rendition of Namira that we get. And she's got her little gimp guy next to her while you talk to her. I wonder what that relationship's about. I'm assuming it's just a scamp, but I mean, I find it funny that they just put this little guy next to this hot chick. It's kind of funny. And like I said before, Namira does not make an appearance in Morrowind, unfortunately. It seems like the Dunmer culture has forgotten her, and she does not make an appearance. But in Oblivion, in the Third Era, the hero of Khajiit can summon Namira if he or she gets their personality low enough, basically, because once again, Namira is the ugly, the downtrodden, the beggars, and so if you're too likable, she doesn't want anything to deal with you. But once you can do that, you know, by drinking some cheap wine or something like that, she'll give you the quest of stopping some followers of the Priest of Decay from trying to enlighten her followers.
You dare approach my shrine, child of the light? You who walks this plain basking in the light of the warm, cruel sun? Prove to me that you deserve my favor. In anger, my forgotten have lived in peace for many years. They worship me from the dark, basking in their misery and filth. Now, though, some would seek to bring light to their darkness. Priests of Decay have intruded upon their squalor. I want you to help my forgotten kill these priests of the light. Cast this spell upon the priests. Allow my beloved forgotten to kill the interlopers. When this is done, I shall reward you for your efforts.
Because it seems like they want to stay in the darkness. And it's a very weird and silly quest in the sense that you can't kill the followers of Decay, but as long as you cast the weird little spell that she gives you to make them drop their torches, then the followers of Namira will do the rest and just destroy these priests of Decay. Sort of showing that at least in Imperial culture, Namira is very much about like darkness, beggars, and being unlikable. Like, I don't know, it's very much like being an edgelord, I feel like. Intentionally evil or intentionally darkness, basically. But if you do the quest and you can get the Ring of Namira again...
You have cleansed my followers' perfect darkness. The forgotten are free to wallow in their misery. Take my ring. Let it bring pain to others who would wish it upon you. Namira blesses you.
But this time I think this is probably the best rendition of the Ring of Namira, because it gives you reflect damage and reflect spell, which is both really good, honestly. Like, just let people hit you and they take a crap ton of damage. It's actually really good. I would say it's probably the best reward out of all the Namira's quests. And finally, we get to the Fourth Era in Skyrim, and this time we run into Namira in Markarth, where once again a priest of Decay has you run out a random person out of the catacombs of Markarth.
You were young when you first tasted human flesh, weren't you? A brother or sister had died? An accident, of course. Then the hunger set in. Curiosity. What's the harm in just one bite? It's okay now. You found a friend who understands you. You can let go of your guilt. A lot of our kind block out the memory of their first meal. The shame is too much. But you don't need to hide anymore. Namira, the Lady of Decay, accepts you for what you are. She has a place for us where we can sate our appetites without judgment. It's inside Reachfolk Cave. But the dead have stirred from their slumber recently, and I was forced here. Meet me there. We'll fight our way to Namira's embrace together. Until then, tell the people of Markarth that their dead won't be disturbed anymore. We have bigger plans ahead.
And she invites you to help clear out the sort of shrine of Namira for the Reachmen, basically. And then she asks you to convince that very same priest of Decay to go to that place, and he becomes the dinner for sort of a society of cannibals.
You look so sweet. Go ahead, have the first bite. Mortal, I am Namira, the Lady of Decay.
Your consumption of the blood and bile of Arkay's own is pleasing to me. I give you my ring. Wear it, and when you feast on the flesh of the dead, I will grant you my power. Wallow in your wretchedness, my newest champion.
And this is definitely the darkest rendition of Namira, but at the same time, she's very much accepted into the Reachman's culture. In Markarth, there's a lot of Forsworn that are sort of secretly involved in normal Imperial life, but also a Forsworn, and you get to see and talk to them, basically. And we're given a little bit more information on how the Reachfolk treat Namira back in ESO in the book Great Spirits of the Reach, Volume 3 and Volume 5. Reachfolk recognize only two worlds, the world of flesh and the world of spirit. While Hircine reigns supreme in the world of flesh, Namira, the Spirit Queen, rules over the infinite realm of spirit. Even among Daedra worshippers, Namira is usually regarded with fear and suspicion. Her traditional sphere of influence inspires instant revulsion in mortals. Chilling mysteries and the inevitable of decay lie at the very heart of most mortal fears. But in the Reach, her dominion extends far beyond mere slugs and darkness. Reachfolk see Namira as the avatar of all primal dualisms, life and death, beginnings and endings, possibility and entropy. All fundamental competing forces flow from her realm of spirit. While most religions strive for some sense of harmony, Reach theology is inextricably linked with conflicts like these. This obsession with conflict as an essential force of existence no doubt plays a role in their belligerent attitude towards outsiders and each other. Paradoxically, most Reachfolk do find some measure of peace in Namira's teachings. Clan witches often describe Namira as one who gives and takes, giving life and taking life until the spirit finds deep wisdom. So it seems like the Reachfolk don't find Namira as evil as the Khajiit. It seems more like you take the good with the bad kind of a thing. Like everyone sort of has good and bad in them, and they sort of see Namira and her sort of spiritiness that she controls, and I guess they are also more open to cannibalism, obviously, and the sort of recycling of things in their culture, and that sort of seems to lead to their worship of Namira. And this continues in Volume 5 of Great Spirits of the Reach. Scholars often dismiss Reach theology as simple Daedra worship, but the Great Spirits of the Reachfolk extend beyond the Princes of Oblivion. Like many human cultures, people of the Reach venerate Lorkhan as well. They know him as Lork, the spirit of man, the mortal spirit, and the sower of flesh. According to the Reach myths, Lork convinced the Spirit Queen Namira to grant him a place in the infinite void where he could create a realm for wayward spirits. Rather than a vibrant paradise, Lork created a hard and painful place, a realm that taught through suffering. While some resent Lork's cruelty, most praise his wisdom. According to the Reachfolk, those who suffer most know best. Hardship is a means to wisdom and glory, and Lork provided hardship in ample supply. Lork supposedly still walks among the mortals of Nirn. He appears only once in a great while, braving the pain and sorrow of the cruel world he created to aid the Reachfolk in times of desperate need. My research indicates that the dreaded Briarheart ritual may have begun as a reflection of that immortal sacrifice. So this shows that the Reachfolk and the Khajiit have a very interesting intertwining and different interpretations of sort of the same creation myth, basically. Instead of Namira being ripped out of Lorkhaj and that being sort of the grand fall of Lorkhan, it seems like Lork is asking Namira to help create Nirn, basically. And so it's very interesting to see that in the Khajiit world, Namira comes from Lork. In the Reachfolk world, the two are separate, and even Lorkhan needs to ask Namira for help in creating Nirn. And I find this very interesting just to compare and contrast these different cultural views of these different beings in the same sort of creation story, which these different creation myths seem to be vaguely similar, but not exactly similar. The details get kind of muddy between them all, and they all have their own interpretations, which then help them sort of revere or denigrate certain deities that they choose, that they think that are important or not important, or need to be hated or not need to be hated, basically. And that's all the history of Namira, and I have to say, very wide-ranging interpretations of her. Seems like there's some cultures that really like her. It's the Khajiit, and a lot of other cultures really don't like her. It seems like the Imperials and the Khajiit are not super fans of her. It seems like the Dunmer just forgot about her, unfortunately. And I'm really interested to see what they kind of do with the Namira questline in Elder Scrolls 6. I kind of hope that they continue with the cannibalism arc a little bit, because I think that that is like a great, very primal way of distilling all of what she is about into one sort of concept of cannibalism, and like making it sort of weird and crazy and disturbing for the player to experience. Or if you're role-playing as someone who is into that kind of thing, like kind of the goth girl metaphor that I used earlier, then it can kind of work if you want to play that sort of bad character in the role-playing aspect of it. But I'm sure that they'll come up with something unique and original, and it'll be fun to play. Thanks for listening to my lore deep dive on Namira. It would mean a lot if you would like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you'd consider becoming a channel member, it goes a long way to helping me make more of this content. Thank you.